Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, The X Monks Drive. I'm your host, Gaurav Arora. Let me share with you. It was 2008 when I left my job and started an organization called Inspire Coaching Systems. I started partnering with different organizations, different people, so that I could get some business. And here we got an opportunity to meet someone senior at GE Capital. Super excited, super excited. Excitement beyond imagination. You know, sometimes you wonder, how could you get so lucky in your life? For me, that was one of those moments. We reach the venue, and a man comes out of his room to escort us and take us to his cabin. He hands over a card to me, and the card says his name and HR leader. No designation, nothing. Remember, the role is very different from the designation. And as I often share, who you are is how you lead. At times, you might have the best of the designations, and if you don't know how to treat people well, it does not make any sense. On the contrary, whatever your card says, and if you know, if you genuinely know how to treat people well, those people are never going to forget you. The person who came out all the way to escort was Rohit Thakur. Now, the story does not stop there, ladies and gentlemen. We got into a conversation, some exchange of ideas, and finally, we ended up doing the program, which unfortunately was a disaster. The very first hour in the program, participants started asking questions, and I did not have any answer. And the more attempts I was making, the more slippery platform I was jumping onto. Literally, I cried at the end of the day. Rohit, the primary objective of this conversation is, of course, apart from understanding you even better, because I can't afford to miss an opportunity to know several chapters of your life. Another thing that I would love to dwell deeper into, you have worked with organizations like Microsoft, you have worked with organizations like GEs, you have worked with organizations like Accentures of the world, and then another phase of your life where you have worked with Paytm and you have worked with Lead School. Now, what according to you are the similarities and the differences in companies like the giants like GE, Microsoft, and then the giants of the startup world, including Paytm and Lead School?
No, I think life has been very fortunate to me. I think I've been privileged to have worked with some of the best leaders and the best companies in the world. I've learned a lot from them. I think my desire to move to a startup was driven by an element of having worked 25 years in large organizations and having mentored startups from the outside, with Microsoft and Accenture, to really see what is life inside a startup. And that's when I was lucky to first work with Vijay and the Paytm team, in Noida, and now with Lead School in Bombay. I think similarities are there. Very very strong similarities about desire to grow, striving for excellence, being market leaders. I think talent comes in important in both places. The desire to have a mission aligned talent. And the importance of building strong leaders across the organizations. I think these are some things that come to mind, which are, I think, important across both startups and large organizations that I've worked in. I think differences, they are relative. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on this one, but just the 3 years that I've been working here, I think more relatively the imprint of the founder and that individual style in terms of how the rest of the organization kind of follows through and behaves and works. I think that founder is really a very important persona in an organization. In a large company, there are many different leaders who kind of make a difference. The impact here is relatively higher of the founder. I think this evolving maturity of systems and processes. I wouldn't say systems and processes are not there, or they are weak, or they are bad. I think they're evolving. Since the startup is still it kind of hits its targets, and as it hits its targets, kind of evolves what it wants to do. And the core values don't change on day one or day, or after 5 years, but the system processes evolve. That's the second level, I would say, relatively, which is different. I think a significantly higher risk-taking ability, both of the company as a startup and also of the individuals inside the startup. The stakes are high and the risks are high in both elements. I think the kind of agility also needed, more I would say relatively, is different. You've got to be agile in thinking. Your resources are limited, and how do you act with that kind of a thing again it becomes important. Thinking like an entrepreneur, more than an employee. What if this was your money and your 10 rupees? How do you spend it? Maximizing everything every day is again something that you start thinking like. And of course, funding as a certain element in a large company. You never think of funding at all. Here, funding is a milestone or a lifeline, that one has to kind of work through. So, and I'm sure every large company I've worked with was a startup at some point in time. So I'm sure they've gone through that element as well. So I would just say it's the phase of where an organization is and a phase at which an employee working in the organization is. I think that's what I think makes a different point of time and some similarities and some differences. That makes sense, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely. You spoke about resilience. You spoke about the entrepreneurial mindset. You spoke about the significance of a leader who's driving that. And what I could pick up from the voice tonality and the inclination, I think the influence of a entrepreneur or a founder in a startup is more because the storyline revolves around that person. Since you have worked with Microsoft as well, and I still remember one of our conversations. I don't know if you would remember that. I remember it very vividly. I was leading a program in Gurgaon. I called you up for something, and in a very casual manner, you said, Gaurav, I am just rushing for a meeting with Satya right now, and I'll get back to you. It took me some time to connect the dots because in my mind, I thought you were in Accenture. And then when I started connecting dots, you said, okay, so Rohit is with Microsoft and who's with Satya? I said, who's Satya? And you said Satya Nadella. And then the penny dropped for me, right? Satya Nadella is considered to be one of the finest leaders today in the world for the kind of work that he has done for Microsoft, the complete revamp, the turnaround. And above all, whatever limited I've heard about him, read the book that he has written about the way he shows up as a father, the resilience that he demonstrates. And that's another thing that I have personally witnessed in you, how close you are to your two sons, how you make time for your family. You're very particular about the timing that you have for your family members, right? Now, what do you think? What's that small difference that makes all the difference? What makes Satya Nadella? What's that small difference that makes all the difference?
That's a good one. And that's been a couple of years back, but it must be for one of the business reviews. I mean, I'm sure that Satya was not, he doesn't remember me at all. So it must be one of the meetings that I was just getting into him with as a team review or something like that. But I admire him a lot. I respect him a lot, admire him a lot. Like many leaders I work with, I think I agree Satya is amongst the best leaders, in the world today. What sets him apart is his humility, a desire to learn, what he calls the growth mindset. And that's one of the pivots that Microsoft is fundamentally working on over the past 5-6 years. It's communication. It's not just the communication, it's a conversation, that he would have with any team, that he's kind of addressing, be it a large global town hall or a small group of business review with 8-10 people. It's a conversation. It's not a telling in, top down, kind of a monologue. Putting himself on the line for what he believes in. He's built a team of high performing individuals, and then he gives them empowerment to do their jobs the way they should. And I think equally important is the ability to let go. That many leaders, I think because of their passion and how much they believe in, they sometimes can't let go. And I've seen Satya, who lets go, of an idea or his point of view, as he hears different other people saying their perspective. He has a great balance of high IQ, and almost everybody in Microsoft has, with an equally strong EQ, which normally is a very scarce commodity in many leaders around the world. And I think that helps him in truly listening and understanding the ecosystem around it. I've had the fortune of working with many leaders like Satya at GE, Aisha, Microsoft, Accenture, and also now at Lead, who have similar leadership traits. And I've also conversely worked with leaders who are full of themselves, love the sound of their own voice, use employees as commodities, means to an end. And whether you're either on their side or on the outside, it's an entire mix out there which differentiates one leader from the other. And I think it's a part of life and learning that, again, it isn't like good or bad, it's just that there are different experiences. And I think it's about how do you adapt, cope, and manage, work through those experiences.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rohit. This is so interesting. Every time when I get into this kind of interview mode, at times my coach starts to show up and I have to say, just shut up right now. It's not the time to put the other person on the block right now. But I'll definitely bring that. And of course, then we'll take another route, right? You mentioned that one of the core capabilities of a leader is to put the right team at the right place, right? And I do understand that because I think it's one of the most easily said than done kind of a task, because you cannot bring the best talent and because there's so much of fear that you have to deal with yourself. You also mentioned that you have had the privilege of working with several such leaders in the companies, including Microsoft, iShare, GE Capital, Accenture, and now Lead School. There is something that you did not mention. Now, interestingly, we are not going to poke into that because we also listen to what is not being said without getting there, right? One of the questions that I have for you is, in the last 3 years that you have been working with the startup, and now my assumption is you've already seen this to some close quarters, right? With what assumptions did you enter the startup world that got challenged for you? And what did you get to know either about the startup world or about yourself that you're thrilled about?
Well, you're putting me on the spot, Gaurav. So I'll just qualify myself. Okay, first, I've got 25 years of experience in large organizations, 3 years in startups, right? So the analogy I like to give is, I play tennis. So like playing tennis on grass and playing tennis on clay is very different. And I've got 25 years of playing in one environment and 3 years of playing in the other environment. So while the rules are similar, HR is HR, business is business, profit, but the context, the surface is very different. So by no means am I an expert in the startups ecosystem. I'm just a student. I'm learning, and I think both my experiences at Paytm and currently at Lead have really opened up, my perspective, show me a different world that I did not know existed. So I think I've been very, very lucky, to have got both those experiences as well. Though initial days, assumptions that have got challenged are mostly around, first, the level of unlearning that one needs to do is huge, with equally immense relearning that one has to do, as you shift from the two environments. One would think that after having worked so many years, it's kind of easy, and you come in there, you kind of, share your stuff, but it's not. I mean, you have to really unhook, yourself from certain beliefs that you had, and in the context of how you're working, what the mission is, and of course, relearn how people who are serial entrepreneurs have really driven and kind of grown their organization. That's, I think, the first thing that I wasn't expecting, right? Second, I think relatively, the degree of energy needed personally and the ability to energize in a startup also, I would say, again, relatively, I'm not saying it's not there in an established company, but it's a higher magnitude, because the intensity at which you're working, the stakes and the risks that you're taking are so high that both your own energy to sustain that pressure and the ability to kind of have your teams, who believe in you, like I'm believing the founder and so on, and the founders being the board, that's kind of invested in them. I think that entire element is extremely intense, and I think that again intensity is at a different level. And I think finally, on a per square foot basis, have seen people having relatively higher egos in startups, than in more mature organizations. I mean, it's maybe part of growing up. That's in my hypothesis. I could be wrong. In terms of being thrilled, I mean, I'm really excited. Purpose that the startups that I worked with serve for my country. I think after having worked for many multinationals, the desire to make a difference for India, for Bharat, as I would like to call it, is immense. So with Paytm, when you're looking at the financial literacy, and then that financial part of making transactions down to the last mile in the smallest of towns, and now with Lead, where our mission is to bring affordable, high quality education to every child in India. And our short-term goal is to positively impact the outcomes of 25 million students in 60,000 schools by the next 4 years. Imagine that. I think that mission and purpose is again thrilling, and to see it being real, the founders believing in it again. It's not something out there on a wall. You're kind of working towards that, which I think is again extremely exciting. And as a CHRO, then to be a part of shaping truly, hopefully, built to last company from close quarters, rather than being a small spoke in a whole wheel, which is what many of us do. I've been doing as well. But I think here you see it from the ringside view and contribute was making it again. It's immense. The sharpness that one needs to have every day, I think, is really higher. The exploration that one needs to find a new way of doing things, with limited budgets and stuff like that, evolving a kind of survival instinct in you with scarce resources, but still having the desire to make a huge dent in the area of the startup. I mean, these are all elements, and I'm just throwing a lot of things that has come to my mind. This is all a potpourri of things which make it exciting, make it risky. You're nervous, but it's exciting.
Yeah. So I can pick up these words when you're saying that it makes it riskier for sure. Anxiety you spoke about, and of course thrilling, right? And also in the startup domain, if I look at from a very, very far end, right, what is visible to me, in startup as well, there are two kinds of startups. One startup is where you mentioned where the egos are really, really high, and people are really aggressive. They are investing huge amount of money in marketing, and thus at the end of the day, when the audits are done, you realize that the profitability was here, and then suddenly you realize within 2 days the profitability came down here, right? Without mentioning any of the companies, of course, in the edtech sector. On the contrary, we have Lead School, and whatever limited I've heard about Lead School from close friends who have worked with Lead School, I think Lead School is an organization that I don't think that invest unnecessarily on marketing, but I think they genuinely invest on delivering value and investing on the product, right? So there are two different kinds of startups that we are talking about. Also, when you mentioned about that, on one hand, the aggression is really high, the hustle, if I may use the word, that is really high, but at the same time, the purpose is that we would like to make a contribution to Bharat, right? To our nation, to our country. Now, just going back to the combination that I just picked up, the combination that you spoke about is that people are really aggressive and the ego is really high. That could be devastating at times for the people, right? Now, let me bring another spin to that. The average age and experience of leaders at the C-suite level in companies like Microsoft and Accenture is comparatively more than the average age and experience of people working in startups. Now, what according to you is the best development modality required for the professional growth, and to round off what you mentioned, the ego part of it, the aggression part of it?
Okay. Right now, I'm in the camp of the startups right now. Okay, so I'm going to bat for the startups, right? I would just say that even the examples you took. My admiration for just a startup CEO or a founder has exponentially gone up over these 3 years. Just to see what they start with, how small they start, the vision they have, the intensity with which they keep moving forward, the failures that hit them again and again and again and again and again and again,
and exponential growth after that.
So I would just say, and many of them, I could never be a founder. I don't think I can ever be a founder. Just what it takes to be a founder, I don't think I have it if I just look at it myself. And so it is admirable wherever they have reached any of these companies. Where they die, they kind of go on, they have issues, but what they've gotten is tremendous, and I respect them for that. I think the element for an individual as somebody who works for a startup is about the values. Okay, your values in sync with what startup. I think that's what I think and again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just about, are they aligned with what the company is doing. I think that's where professionals coming in. I think that's what I think they just need to think about. But every founder is really an inspiration in many ways of kind of where they've gotten to. In terms of, you spoke about the experience level. Yes, you have many people relatively lesser experience who are taking challenges at a much earlier age. You've got many founders who are right out of IITs or right out of an IIM Ahmedabad or wherever, and they're leading teams, right? And large organizations, everybody looks up to them for direction. So I think risks and stakes are also relatively higher. Energy and enthusiasm is more personal, than what you would have in a large organization. Some of the modalities I can think of kind of developing this talent is maybe for them to do different roles faster, because what also happens is once you get a lot of expertise, I think that again in some ways might make you you might think that an easier way to get things done. And I think once you experience different parts of a startup, you might get the maturity about what it means to build a kind of responsible business. I think staying close to the customer is extremely important, because you might have an idea in your mind about what you want to do, but then the kind of fit, the fit for purpose, that kind of thing. What are they building? What does the customer really need? And that second thing again, can make people in startups, very real about what they're doing and what they're impacting. I think I've always had values as an anchor for decision making in all the companies I work, and I also think that in startups as well, for high potential individuals who are doing large responsible things, to ingrain values in their organization, so that they can look at those wherever they have a quandary, to say, hey, what would this mean? As a guiding light is again something that I would recommend. Having clear goals, and I think all starts with understanding self. Okay, whatever you want, first let's get to know how you are. How are you perceived? What are you like? And I think understanding self using 360 and other tools, I think is another way for helping them be more real about themselves. And I think eventually having mentors, to bounce off things with, who they respect, who they trust, again is another element I think can help individuals, high potential, high energy, very mission aligned individuals get even better in shaping an organization.
Yeah, since you are talking about knowing yourself, and that was one of the questions, let me just pull that question back and bring it here, plug it here. In your journey, your professional journey, what are you getting to know about yourself? Especially the transition that you have taken, which is not at all an easy transition.
I think it's a very concerted, thought out decision for me. There are options that always come in, options that are always there to go back to the kind of companies I work with. And of course, there are times when you're frustrated saying, hey, don't they get this? I mean, why do I have to explain this? But then, I think that again about judging, it's about saying, hey, you've taken a conscious decision, and the more I'm in a learner mode, and I truly am, I truly believe I'm in a learner mode. I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see how I thought things could happen, things don't happen this way, how I find a different way of making things happen, because things have to happen. I mean, that's my role, right? To make things happen. How the failures come in and how to adapt to those failures as they happen as well. I think the main element is, can you stay in that growth mindset? What I think is it's a very big term. And there's so many implications to it. But can you stay a learner? Because you really are a learner. So let's not have any ambiguity about what I come with. It doesn't matter. It's element. And in that sense, how can you make a difference? How can you make an impact? How can you maximize your own potential and the potentials of people around you? I think that's what's keeps me going and makes this. And of course, the mission for what you joined for. That again is something that keeps you excited. So I guess that purpose, the sense of purpose, and the sense of personal growth, and in that way, in whatever small way you can contribute towards making an organization that has got massive aspirations, hopefully get to where it wants to get to, is what I think is what I anchor myself to, with different things that happen every day.
Got it. So I'm not surprised when you're talking about being open, having a growth mindset, being a learner through and throughout. I remember when you were in that transition, I remember one of our conversations, and you said, Gaurav, before I take any plunge, right now I'm on a spree and I'm talking to several leaders from startup. And once I have a better understanding, only then I would take a decision. I remember that conversation very, very clearly, very vividly. Right now, you mentioned that one of the traits that you have assimilated in yourself in all this journey is that any decision that you make is based on values. So learning, resilience, growth mindset are the values which have been driving your decision. What's a big no? That you will not compromise for anything.
Principles. Principles, respect for the individual, integrity in terms of of what we say and what we do. It doesn't mean financial integrity. It just means integrity of what we say and do. Do we kind of stand true to what we have? I think at the core of it is the core principles. A company can go bankrupt. We'll still kind of figure a way out of coming out of it. It's not a big deal. I think financial element, challenges come everywhere. I think it's about core employee respect. I spoke about employees should not be treated like commodities. Employees should not be treated like means to an end. Of course, there's performance. Of course, there's going to be differentiation. Not everybody is built equal. But I think staying true to what you commit to an employee, being authentic about what you want to accomplish as a leader, and of course financially, having a honest, following the rules of the land in terms of how we see the results. And I think those are 3-4 things that I think are important for me. Having a purpose again is something that excites me, but I think these 3-4 things, if they are absolute no-nos, where it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. No matter what the reward at the end of it.
Yeah. So now I'm able to connect several dots in my conversation. What is being said, what is not being said, and what is said and then what is resaid, right? I will not get into that. However, let's take one step forward here, Rohit. Rohit, what do you think? What are the qualities required to stay relevant in today's world? And specifically, we are talking about technology and the startup world.
I think I'll take a punt. Relevance to me again is the how, right? How does one stay kind of relevant in the context? And I think we got about 8 values that lead, and I think I'll talk about those, and we all come through it with a lot of debate inside, and I agree with each one of them, and I'll just rattle them off from the top of my head. First, I think I mentioned growth mindset a few times. I think I've seen the transformation of Microsoft, from where it was to where it is, and I think growth mindset has been one of the key levers there. So I think that's something for an individual to have, in today's world, definitely. I think courage with empathy. I think courage is important. You got to speak your mind. You got to get your ideas through. If you don't communicate, no change will happen. But doing that with empathy, for those around you, so it's not just your way or the highway, but I think taking others along with you again is the second thing that I would say is important. I think excellence with velocity. We've got to do the right things. We've got to do things really fast. But
you said excellence with velocity.
With velocity, yeah. So it's about this thing for perfection, striving for perfection. It's good to strive for perfection, but it's about how do I do that fast? And if that means it's 80% perfect, can I move on with that and correct the balance 20%? As I go along. But speed is equally important as perfection, and what's the right balance? With that. I think customer centricity. Knowing the customer, having the customer at the center of, never forgetting that. What function am I in, or what part of the business I lead, of what is this impacting the customer, and how many levels away from the customer, am I working in? Again, I think is something that keeps you real and kind of keeps you grounded. I think what you call being the cause, taking personal responsibility to achieve our goals. It's not like it's that person's job. I've done my stuff, now the ball is in that court. But I think being the cause at lead is about taking personal responsibility to achieve our goals. Integrity is about honoring our word. Of course, the core integrity is there, but it's about how do I honor my word. living the mission, and I think finally people. We are a tribe, and I think working not as an individual, but working as a team and taking everybody together. It's not about my function and your function and her function. It's about how do we work together and we stand for each other, especially in the startup where you're still evolving your culture, you're still evolving, your mission, it's still in its formative stage. I think people connected, people focus is extremely important.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you so much for bringing that. Again, in all my conversations, I think a common thread which is emerging is how well you take care of your people. I'm sure, Rohit, in your life, you have experienced several ups and downs, which is being human. Also, you are a certified coach. You have been a practicing coach. You have been on both sides of coaching. Just curious, what role has coaching played in your life to keep yourself so stable? Because I've always seen you very grounded and very stable, never super excited, and I've never seen you in not so good mood. So what's the secret behind that?
I think it's a village, Gaurav. It's a village that gets you to where you are. And I think I realized that very early on in my life. My family, standing for me all the time. I think I've had some of the best managers in the world. I will not change my life for anybody out there because of the experiences I've had with the kind of leaders that I worked with and people who've taken interest. I think of myself right from the first element when I was getting rejected at every group discussion in XLRI when I was looking for a job, to when Vimal Rats took a punt on me and Prani took a punt on me and said, "Hey, join Aisha," and it was my first job. And I'm from everywhere from the time I got into Excel in an interview that I should have flunked in. But I think how my family stayed with me as I've traveled all over the world. My team members, I think I've always prided myself, and I've been lucky that I've always wanted to hire people better than me, and I have hired people better than me. And I think how they've been vested, in the success of the company, and that is my success and their success as well. And mentors, mentors around me as well. So I think being grounded is, what you call grounded for me is reality that I couldn't have done this myself by a mile. In the furthest of imagination, if I hadn't had some people who kind of stood by me, over this journey, and are still standing by me as I'm still learning.
Yeah, and I think you have also stood by people. At least I can talk about myself. From day one when I started my journey, the first time when I was on the pitch, and as I was mentioning, that I could not hold my tears, and then there you were and saying, "Hey, Gaurav, it happens. Let's move on." So, and Rohit, what do you think? What role can coaching play in the startup ecosystem that you are swimming in right now?
I think coaching is critical in any sector. Startup is no different. In terms of the context, where I think it becomes more important than maybe in some other contexts, is where the pressures of work are very high, where there's tremendous power and responsibility at a much earlier age, with much earlier experience. The desire to make a huge difference with no easy answers on how to get there. And where telling, top down is rather than seeking to understand, becomes a norm in getting speed to work. I think all these ingredients in any sector, startup definitely has elements of this, but I think large companies, many companies also have element of this, are good context to accelerate coaching at work. And I do believe that I think currently and even the future, current and future, I think managers or leaders who are conscious about their leadership styles or are in addition to, I would say, decision making and shaping an organization, are equally open to inclusion, diversity, which again in one way is coaching as well. When you're trying to maximize one's potential and the organization. I think those kind of organizations and those kind of leaders is what will people want to work for, and those kind of leaders will make a difference, to the organization.
Sorry, just the last question from my end, Rohit. What's the essence of life for you?
So I think we all have each one of us has unique strengths and weaknesses. I think maximizing your potential and trying to do the same with those around you is one important essence. One of my managers in Accenture, would say, something like lift as you fly. As you take wings and as you kind of raise to new heights. How do you lift others along with you? So these would involve taking risks, would involve putting yourself out of your comfort zone, being comfortable with what you accomplish, and hopefully not having any regrets at the end of it all. So Ellen Shook, who was our global CHRO for Accenture, she would say this, and I think that really caught my attention, and she really believes in that, and she does that as well. So I think that part of maximizing your own potential and impacting others around you positively with having no regrets and taking risks, I think is one thing that struck me as what could be life's sense. Otherwise, what are you living?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, and I love the candid conversation that we had. My key takeaways from today's episodes are courage with empathy, excellence with velocity, and customer centricity. By the way, what are your key takeaways and lessons? Do share them with us. Rate and review this podcast, please. And I look forward to meeting you next week with yet another interesting conversation. Till then, take care and stay tuned.